Hi, my name's Madison, and this is how I came alive. My mom had me when she was very young, and due to that, I didn't have my biological father in my life. It caused a lot of pain and just havoc on my life because I didn't know who he was, and I would always wondered why he didn't want to be a part of my life, and what did I do wrong for him not to want me as a daughter. So when I was 11 years old, I told my parents, my mom and my stepdad, that I wanted to meet him. And I did. And he portrayed himself to be the best dad in the world. He wanted the world for me, that all he wanted was what's best for me. And during that time, because I wanted him in my life so bad, I believed him. He told me that I should start acting a certain way, start doing things a certain way. He told me how to dress. He picked out my clothes. He told me who I could and could not hang out with. He also just completely took control over who I was as a person. After that, he had started taking advantage of me for years until I was 15. And I never spoke about it, ever. He told me that he would not be a part of my life anymore, that he couldn't be my dad, that he couldn't be around me if I didn't continue to give him what he wanted. I couldn't fathom even seeing him leave me again. So I let it happen over and over again. So one night, I was over there, and he had found out that I was being a teenager and I was talking to some boy and he had went through my phone, and because of that, he got so angry and so drunk that he beat me. Really bad. So bad to the point that I was screaming at the top of my lungs. The neighbor came knocking on the door to check on what was going on. I couldn't hide it from my mom and dad anymore. My stepdad. I couldn't hide it anymore. And I had to tell them what was going on. I only told them that he hit me. I never told them about any sexual abuse. I never told them about anything that was going on. So we had to go through the court system about the whole abuse thing and him beating me. And I had to separate myself from him. I wasn't allowed to see him for, I think it was 9 months. And because of that, I learned to grow the courage to finally learn myself again. So when I started seeing him again and he had visitation rights, the cycle started over again. But this time, I knew that I needed to speak out about it. I knew that I needed to come out. I knew that this wasn't right and that I couldn't live my life like this anymore. I was hanging out with my friends and doing teenager things, not what I should have been doing. I had gotten really drunk and I didn't know who to tell, and a conversation came up about sexual assault and stuff with my friends, and I finally just came out and said it. Everyone loved my dad. Everyone thought he was the best dad in the world. He portrayed himself to be amazing, and he wasn't. So they were like, you have to tell someone. And during the time that I was telling my friends all this, I was on my phone. And at the time, I was talking to a boy, and I was in my mind, I was maybe I should tell him. No idea why I did it. No concept of what was going to happen. But I just told him. And he went behind my back in the best way possible. And he told my parents the stuff I told him. And little did I know, my mom and my stepdad and him were in on it. And he told me I had a week to tell them before he did. she had already talked to the cops because she had knew what was going on. So everything was like kind of in order. I just didn't know about it because everyone wanted me to tell them. Like they didn't want to force this upon me to have to speak out about it. I wrote it in my notes app and I gave it to my mom, my phone, and I walked away. And she came to my room just crying. She told me everything's gonna be okay. And all I wished for that no one knew. I wanted this to be so discreet, so secret. I wanted no one to know what was going on. And she promised me, she goes, Madison, I promise you we don't have to tell anyone. This is gonna be discreet, it's gonna be fine. A couple weeks later, he finally got arrested and the Times News posted his face everywhere. It takes a long time for the courts to decipher through stuff. So during that time, he started going to a church and he became in this friend group and they all perceived him as a very nice, charming, good person, and they thought he wasn't the monster that he was. And when he had started going to this church, was able to see him again. He had told me all about it, told me how he got saved, how he's a different person, how good God is, and I was just like I couldn't even, I was like, this is fake. Like, I don't believe you. I don't believe that this is like who you are. It very much veered me away from any type of religious aspect in my life. I was like, I don't know if I can ever go to church. I don't know if I could ever be a part of anything like that. I don't know if I'm ever gonna become a believer. He had pleaded guilty in his court hearing, and during that time the judge was deciding his sentence, and he could have up to 10 years. And there was people that came from the church to give their character witness about how good he was. Because of that, it also just gave me this really bad taste in my mouth about God. But at the same time, it was really weird because I remember saying, like, those aren't bad people. Like God doesn't do that. Like, those aren't bad people. Like, in the back of my head, I always knew that God was so good, but I think the image that was being portrayed to me just very steered me straight away from it. And then after all that, I started to heal. I really was able to kind of put all the court and logistics aside and really start focusing in on myself. I was going to therapy a lot, and what I didn't know is that my therapist is actually really religious. And I had no idea this entire time. And the things that she would tell me and stuff started making sense when I started to come to church. And I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. So it's all planting in me, I get all this information, and I had no idea that this was like a word from God, that God was trying to tell me something. And for years I'd been going to her, and so I started going to therapy. And then, I don't know why, but for months before I came to church, I had this feeling like, Madison, you need to go to church. You need to go to church. Like, something just in me was like, you need to just step foot, like, you need to try it. Like, I was exhausted from all of my options of trying to do it on my own, that I honestly like gave up. I was like, I'm always gonna have this anxiety. I'm always gonna have these depressive episodes. I'm never going to be the same. And this is what he did to me. This is how I have to live my life for the rest of my life. I reached out to a really good friend and she was like, come to my church. She gave me a whole list of other churches to go to, and I did. And I came and I haven't left. I started to tell my story a little bit here and there, just to like one or two people. And during that time, I found out that some of those people that had went to church with him prior have been praying for me this entire time and have had no idea who I was. So at church, we are in this series of worship and how we can be better at worshiping. And this past week at Young Alive, we did this thing where the boys separated from the girls, and we talked about what was holding us back from worship and praising Him. I decided to be vocal, and I was like, I just feel that I have not been worshiping Him the way that I should be, because I don't want to open up doors that I need to heal from. And everyone laid hands on me, they prayed over me, and I was like, okay, like I need to start doing better. I need to make sure I'm worshiping Him. I need to make sure that I'm doing all of this right. So then yesterday at group, we had a guest speaker, and as he was speaking, I had this really, really bizarre thought in my head, and I was like, I wonder if he knows my biological dad. I've never seen this guy. I've never even seen him at church. And I was like, why would I even think that? And I kept it to myself. Group had ended, we were all chatting, and someone had asked what his name was. The last name is the same last name as my dad's. And I was like, that's really weird. Why did I have this thought in my head? So I had to ask him. And I don't really know if there's any relation there, but because I don't know too much about that family, like that side or anything. But during that time, I spoke out and I told my testimony, and I realized that I need to be obedient with God, and that God has been pulling on my heart for months now that I need to do this. And because of that, I'm getting baptized today, and I'm telling my testimony. Although I have said many times before that I forgive him, it still weighs on my heart, even today. And I try very hard to just know that, like, I need to forgive him, because if I don't, then it's just going to continue to weigh on me. I have a sister, and she is 15 now. And I did this all because of her. This is happening or has happened. Telling your testimony is one of the best things that you can do, because it helps break those chains that are bonded to you and helps you release anything that is going on, because keeping it all bottled up inside is not going to help you at all. One of my favorite verses that I have to remind myself of is Philippians 4:8. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and what is honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Another one of my favorite verses is John 33. Anyone who accepts his testimony can affirm that God is true. My name is Madison, and that is how I came alive.